So is Tennessee ready to take Georgia out? I've got the answer for you here in a few seconds. Dean Legge from Dog Post, making you a smarter Georgia fan. And the Vols are certainly on a roll. When you look back, they've not lost a game in over a year. It's been since, right on top of a year. It's been since they lost to number one Alabama 35-13 on October 19th that they lost. And the loss before that was a 43-14 beating from Georgia. So Tennessee certainly with plenty of momentum. And as Sunday came here, we found out two things about this game. Number one, this is going to be a matchup between two teams in the top 12 in rankings, which is hard to believe in many ways. But secondly, that the Vols will be a 14-point or two-touchdown underdog to Georgia when they come into Athens. That seems about right to me. But you've heard a lot of chirping through the offseason from the Vols. Plenty of discussion about how they are ready to make the jump to the next level. And if they are, we're going to see it happen in our very eyes because if they're going to make the jump, they're going to have to beat teams like Georgia. If they're going to make the jump, they're going to have to beat teams like Alabama. If they're going to make the jump, they're going to have to beat teams like Florida. So far, Tennessee 2-0. They have not beaten a team that's won a game this season so far. Last year, after losing to Alabama, they have gone on a streak that includes this. This is a 20-point win over South Carolina, a 23-point win over UAB, a 4-point win over Kentucky, a 4-point win over Mizzou, a 18-point win over Vanderbilt, and then, of course, the come-from-behind win over Indiana, a 1-point win at the Gator Bowl at the end of 2019. A 4-point win over South Carolina and Columbia to start the season a week ago, and then the pretty solid beating, I would say, of Mizzou in Neyland the other day, about 23-point win. Missouri definitely is one of the worst teams in the league. I think there's no question about that. But, Tennessee will come in ranked in the top 15. This is the first time in a long time that the Vols have actually been decent. I find it hard to believe that Tennessee will stick with Georgia in this game, and there's a lot of different reasons why. So to answer the question, is this the time where Tennessee will take Georgia out? I'm skeptical, and there's a couple of reasons why. As I said, there's been a lot made about Tennessee's offensive line. It is really pretty good. It's probably one of the best offensive lines in the conference. That's one unit. Out of three teams that go on the field for Tennessee, special teams, defense, and offense. The rest of the Vols are not nearly as good as their offensive line. And anyone that goofed around with South Carolina for as long as Tennessee did is not a team that I think is going to play in the same ballpark as Georgia. So how do upsets happen? I mean, if you look through the years of Georgia and Tennessee, 2004, Tennessee upsetting Georgia, David Green and David Pollock. They were a substantial underdog in that game. 2000, I'm trying to remember the other upset that they pulled. 2007 was actually not an upset. That game was basically a pick-em, but that was in Neyland as well. Georgia has dominated this game this century. I mean, I can name you on my hand how many times they've won. I'll go through it real quick. 2004 in Athens, that was an upset win. Tennessee goes on to win the SEC East. 2006 in Athens, a come-from-behind win for Eric Ainge in Tennessee. The Gators go on to win the SEC East in that one. 2007, Tennessee absolutely destroys Georgia in Neyland. And then 2009, a game that basically cost that defensive staff their job. From 2010 all the way into 2015, Tennessee frustrated with their losses to Georgia, some of them close, some of them blowouts. Then in 15, Georgia gets up by, I think, 20 and loses a game very similar to the way that they lost in 2006. Of course, 2006 became a blowout. And then the 2016 miracle for Tennessee is actually 6 games this century. So Tennessee, I think, if my math is right, is 6-14 So Mark Richt really did change this rivalry. And in this century, the reason why I bring that up, Tennessee's had such a hard time, go from a national power in the 90s to a team that has won this division 3 times this century, 2001, 2004, and 2007. They've been dominated by Georgia. They've been dominated by Florida. Certainly this last decade, the century fell apart for them probably after the 2001 SEC championship game loss to Nick Saban and LSU. But this past decade, from the point that Tennessee got rid of Phil Fulmer after the 2008 season, it's been a revolving door of coaches. So Fulmer goes out in 2009. Here comes Lane Kiffin. He's out. Then here comes Derek Dooley. Then Butch Jones. And then after that, now Jeremy Pruitt, who seems to at least at a minimum has gotten them to where they can win 6, 7, 8 games a year. They're a disaster as an athletic department. Don't take my word for it. Go look up their budget, look up their situation. But there's been so much enthusiasm coming from Knoxville that you would think that they would have a real shot to win this game. It's hard for me to see that happening because I watched Georgia lately, obviously very close, and to see the speed of this defense, Jarek Garantano is going to have a very hard time functioning as a quarterback against this Georgia team. Tennessee's going to have to run the ball effectively against a team that it's very hard to run the ball against effectively. On the offensive side of the ball, Georgia all of a sudden looks much more explosive than they did. Even if they're not explosive, they're functional. So, there's a lot of hope right now at Tennessee. But there's a big difference between hope and execution. I think Georgia knows what it's doing. I think Tennessee wants to be where Georgia's at. And they're not there yet. They're getting there. It's getting better for sure. But there's a big difference between beating South Carolina and Missouri for 4 of your last, let's see. So, of Tennessee's last 8 wins, 4 total have come against South Carolina and Missouri. And the others have come against UAB, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Indiana. That's not, the 1985 Bears. So, I think all due respect to the Vols, until they beat Georgia, until they beat the Gators, until they beat Alabama, maybe I should rephrase that, until they're within 20 points of Georgia, until they're within 20 points of Florida, until they're within 20 points of Alabama, maybe we should chill out with the Tennessee is, back stuff, because that's just 3 of their games. And it is no question, it's challenging. But the Vols still also have to deal with, suddenly now it looks like Arkansas has become a team that's going to be difficult. They got to deal with Alabama. Their November is as follows: at Arkansas, Texas A&M, at Auburn, at Vanderbilt, and then they host the Gators. That's tough. So we'll see how this goes. I like Georgia's chances for a lot of different reasons. I mean, you're a 14-point favorite. That means about 85% of the time you win the game. The only caveat to that is that Georgia has had losses under Kirby that you didn't see coming. 2016 Vanderbilt, 2019 South Carolina. That's not a lot of losses. And those 2 teams don't look like they're this team. So, color me skeptical that the Vols will hang around with Georgia the entire time. I'm going to send you this video right here of Stetson Bennett after the game. I'd pay attention to everything he has to say here, particularly about the part when he wasn't the starting quarterback and how he reacted during that time. Thanks for watching. Dean Legge from Dawgs, making you a smarter Georgia fan. We'll see you on the website.